I didn't think much of Fetch while playing Infamous Second Son. I don't mean I didn't like her, I mean I didn't think about her enough to decide whether to like her or not. Abigail Fetch Walker is a side character, a minor love interest, loud, unhinged and funny, the Harley Quinn of Infamous. That's the extent of her role. But said role changes with the spin-off prequel Infamous First Light, which reshaped my understanding about Fetch so fundamentally that she is now my favorite character of the franchise. First Light features Fetch's backstory, which is full of an extraordinary amount of trauma and a 2-year imprisonment during which she is manipulated and psychologically groomed until she's dependent on the main game's antagonist, Augustine. And none of that is present in the main game. That makes Abigail Walker one of the saddest examples of unwriting trauma in women, because the quirky girlfriend needs to be fun, not broken.
I don't know what that girl needed, but it wasn't a prison.
To fully understand what happened, let's look at the Fetch we get to know in the main entry of the series. At the beginning of Second Son, Fetch escapes from a prison convoy. She flees to Seattle and starts dismantling the local drug trade. Delson tracks her down eventually and Fetch shares her neon powers with him. She then participates in various skirmishes against the DOP and, by extent, Augustine. Fetch is only really present throughout her own arc, which consists of 3 to 5 main missions, and then again for the confrontation leading up to and including the final battle. Fetch's role for the story is, for all intents and purposes, negligible. Even after playing through the whole game twice, once for the evil, once for the good ending, I didn't have anything to say about her. The closest I ever got to real opinion on Fetch was being mildly annoyed with the writing. The writers seriously equated mental instability to being sexually open. On the good Karma playthrough, Fetch is a shy girl, and on the evil route, this feels like a trope we should have left in the 90s and forgotten about. To make this abundantly clear, I really love Second Son. Augustine, the open world, the street art, all of that is done well. But the game falls apart if you play both routes because the writing feels inconsequential and inconsistent. Because of this, I went into First Light with low expectations. Will this installment really add anything of value to Fetch or the franchise? Well, yes, it does, but also no, it doesn't. But also, it could have, if the devs would have just looked at their own story for 5 minutes. So, since they didn't, I have to point out the obvious like some unpaid intern. First Light establishes Fetch as a recovering addict who wants to skip town with her brother Brand to start a new life. The game follows a dual narrative, with a considerably bigger portion being the open-world backstory. In it, Fetch searches for her brother who got kidnapped by Shane, the main antagonist. The other thread takes place in the present, 2 years after the events from the open world. Fetch is being held in Augustine's conduit prison where she demonstrates and trains her abilities. I won't bore you with a detailed retelling of the game's story, but I will refresh your memories. Just as the 2 siblings are about to start their new life, Brand gets kidnapped. Helpless and alone, Fetch immediately latches onto the man who offers to help find him, Shane, not knowing that he's the one who kidnapped Brand in the first place. Fragile as she is, Fetch is an easy target for his manipulations. He even gets her, the recovering addict, to help him develop his drug business, until eventually she refuses. This is when Shane reveals his true self, and Fetch, along with the player, realizes that he was the villain of the story all along. He was the one who kidnapped Brand. Fetch's fickle support system crumbles in her grasp. She is alone once more, and this time it's her helpless rage that allows her to bounce back from the brink of a mental breakdown. Now, I don't have a background in psychology. I don't want to throw around loaded terms like trauma, psychotic breaks, and post-traumatic stress without properly showing you what I base my analysis on. But in all of what has happened so far, and even more so in what happens after this point in the story, Sucker Punch has actually managed to write a realistic depiction of a mental health crisis spiraling into trauma. This isn't just some washed out, she lost her dad when she was 6 type situation. It's an uncomfortable depiction of extended mental anguish that, followed by the psychological grooming in the DOP prison, paints an extremely grim picture which is fully consistent with In First Light. And that's what I need you to actually see and understand for yourself. After the realization that Shane kidnapped Brand, fueled by rage, Fetch is ready to confront Shane, but loses the upper hand when the bastard drugs her. And as of that, the absolute disrespect of drugging a recovering addict isn't enough. In her drugged state, Fetch is made to attack and kill her brother. And that's the point where her mental frame finally cracks under the pressure. The person who was her only real support in this shitty life, dead at her own hands. The man she latched onto as a last resort, a traitor of the highest degree and out of reach. The absolute and utter defeat of being in a worse place than she started. Back on drugs and alone in the world. Fetch slips into an apathetic, disassociative state. She's in shock, and who can blame her? That's an extreme amount of mental stress. I don't think it's a stretch to assume that Fetch would most likely spiral back into her addiction or possibly commit suicide if left unattended. But it doesn't come to this, because the DOP picks her up immediately after. In Augustine's prison, even though 2 years have passed, she is still experiencing auditory hallucinations and active disassociation.
Unless you open up, Miss Walker. Miss Walker.
Fetch!
Now, those are common psychiatric symptoms for a lot of different diagnoses, and we obviously can't know for sure what happened between her arrest and the beginning of her training with Augustine, but if I had to make an educated guess, I'd say Fetch has most likely experienced an acute psychotic break after killing her brother, a state that could have been temporary if she had received proper treatment. But she doesn't. Fetch is more useful to Augustine broken, after all, because mentally unstable people are easier to control. During their training sessions, Augustine is psychologically grooming Fetch into doing her bidding. She reassures her, praises her, and even reframes the trauma completely.
No, Miss Walker. You're a survivor.
A survivor. Yeah, she is. But she's also a fucking victim, and she needs real help and resources. If Augustine would actually care about Fetch, she'd get her into fucking therapy. But she doesn't. Instead, she lets Fetch channel her violent outbursts. Augustine's motives are not clearly communicated to the player, but my guess is that her goal is to use Fetch as a weapon against other conduits. The in-universe purpose of the arena fights is for Augustine to assess Fetch's abilities, but the fights are also clearly rewards. Fetch is allowed to feel powerful and in control for the first time in over 2 years. The two main modes of the arena are destroy as many enemies as possible and rescue the hostages. Fetch is literally being trained to not let her brother die. The mental anguish and relief that must give her. At the end of the story, Augustine tests how well her plan worked. She presents Fetch with the option to kill Shane. Augustine harvested all that anger, developed all this rage, and honed all of Fetch's skills to now see if she can benefit from them. Mind you, the woman who has Fetch imprisoned for over 2 years is standing right behind her. And it's not like Fetch has to wonder whether she can take on the DOP on her own. She has been trained on taking down hundreds of them without issue. Fetch could kill Augustine and probably all of the guards without trouble. Hell, if Fetch were a hero in this story, she could most likely free all other prisoners on her way. But she isn't a hero. She doesn't want to free anyone. Her only goal is to destroy Shane, and she does so without any form of remorse. Fetch doesn't merely kill him, she disintegrates him. The on-screen prompt literally says, "Punish him." And with that, she is exactly what Augustine wanted her to be. I believe Fetch is fully dependent on Augustine at this moment. Augustine is the first person to show her love and understanding in over 2 years. She praises Fetch and allows her to be angry and loud and actually use her powers. Something even Brand never wanted her to do. That conditioning, mixed with the extreme trauma Fetch endured before, heck, still endures, because prison and isolation are inherently traumatic experiences. You don't just bounce back after a 2-year-long mental emergency state without proper support, without any support. And that's the end of First Light. Fetch is a murder weapon entirely dependent on her captor, now free to ransack the world. Second Son takes place 7 days after First Light. 7 days! And Fetch is just happily killing drug dealers. No sign of adjustment issues to being outside again, no further break from reality, no PTSS from being back where her brother died, no conflict with the DUP, no relapse, no cell phone, no run-ins with Augustine. Fetch's trauma isn't taken into consideration at all. If something like this happened to a person, they wouldn't just happily go about their day. The first time Delson mentions that he plans to go after Augustine, Fetch would have to have a reaction, because her nervous system is associating Augustine with good things right now, and her logical thinking tells her Augustine held her captive. But that was probably for the best, right? Because now she is clean and still alive and stronger than ever, and Augustine was nice to her, and she did allow Fetch to take her revenge on Shane, right? So should she attack her? She only really wants to kill the drug dealers because it's their fault Brent is dead. If they'd never have taken drugs, he would still be alive and they would still be together and live somewhere far away from Seattle. So the drugs are at fault for Brent's death, not Augustine. Why would she want to hurt Augustine? Augustine was nice to her, right? That is a more logical stream of consciousness than that.
Yeah, I gotta go hook up with the other woman in my life.
Augustine. What does she have that I don't?
Concrete power?
You guys. I'll answer the same thing.
I'm sorry, but that makes no sense. There is no trauma in that sentence. None. But the part after makes it even worse. Delson says something to the extent of, "I think your brother would be proud of you for killing drug dealers."
By the way, I think your brother would have been real proud of what you did.
You mean killing the dealers, destroying the drugs, and freeing the sex slaves, right?
No, he wouldn't! Brand didn't even want Fetch to use her powers at all, least of all to kill people. But not even the killing of drug dealers itself makes any amount of sense. From what we've seen in First Light, Fetch should be able to level the whole drug cartel in one fell swoop. But she's instead killing them one at a time and paints pretty pictures. I mean, all power to art therapy, but this is such a wild de-escalation from the spin-off. It's so ridiculous. Sucker Punch could have used the karma system to their advantage, but they didn't. Both good and bad Fetch are essentially the same person. One is a little more unhinged than the other, but that's about it. But let's imagine the possibilities for a moment. If Delson decides to redeem Fetch, she could try to keep herself safe by keeping away from the main battles. Aware of her mental fragility, she wouldn't want to face Augustine. Actually working up to that confrontation would be a major plot element. Fetch would also be weaker because she's fighting less, but that would allow her to heal, which means she'd become less volatile over time and actually hopped into battles occasionally to support Delson. The other side of this, instead of suggesting Fetch is promiscuous for the evil playthrough, what if she tapped into her full strength and rage? Fetch wouldn't hold back at all, continuing to fracture her mind by excessive exposure to violence. Eventually, she'd be indiscriminately destructive to enemies and allies alike. She'd jump into battle, wreak havoc, and then be gone. Sometimes destroying the enemies, sometimes putting Delson at a considerable disadvantage. There would have been so many cool ways to incorporate into the game what she's been through, even without making any major changes to the story. But instead, Fetch and Augustine act like they are faceless enemies to one another, as if there isn't any history between the two at all. And I can't help but ask, why? Why didn't Sucker Punch actually make Fetch's personality consistent between the two games? Well, it's simple. They either didn't understand their own character, or they only fully developed Fetch for First Light. Both are equally damning, because either these guys are stupid or lazy. That sounds mean, I know it sounds mean, but is it? If they knew exactly who Fetch was and what she's been through before writing Second Son, it begs the question of why they would erase it. Because it would have dominated the narrative? Yeah, it would have. And it should have, because you wrote it that way. But to just backpedal from your own writing? What a bunch of cowards. And if they didn't know what Fetch had been through when developing Second Son? Well, then Sucker Punch thought a little impulsive is fun, a little trauma makes her interesting, a little crazy is hot. They just pasted an empty shell of character in their game and called it good enough. After playing Second Son for the second time, I was mildly annoyed by the depiction of sexually open women being mentally unstable. After playing First Light, I am so unbelievably angry. I got robbed of what this story could have been, who Fetch could have been if they just committed to their own writing. There's something infinitely worse about seeing great ideas not realized than them not being there in the first place. God damn it, Sucker Punch, get your shit together and let your characters be. Fetch had the potential to be a great example for a lot of things. An acute psychotic break, PTSS in women, psychological grooming and the long-term effects of imprisonment and untreated trauma. And it would have come with some genuinely compelling angles from which to explore this boring and ordinary open-world game. But Sucker Punch did none of these things. I would love to not make this about gender, but it kinda is. Fetch is just one character in a long line of women who are either painted as crazy enough to be put down, or just traumatized enough to be healed by real men. You take all this time to realistically depict what trauma does to a person, only to then magically extract it again as soon as it complicates the fun girlfriend trope. I am tired of women being robbed the opportunity to change stories in meaningful ways. Just don't write them at all if you want to just treat them like potted plants. Until then, I am Bica, and I'm going to take a deep breath.